Hey, hey. What's going on, everyone? Oh, how's everyone doing? I hope you're having a great Friday. About to get started with this stream here. Decided to not brew up some coffee. It's really hot here in Colorado, so I got some iced coffee. That's what I'll be sipping on for the stream. Hope you all are having a great day, whether you're watching it live or you're watching the recording. Today we're going to be, let's make sure this is working over here. Nice, there we go. All right, today we're working on Dawn again. If you're not familiar with Dawn, Dawn is a calendar / to-do app. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's an app that I'm working on with a couple of friends as a startup, and it's something that we're hoping to release sometime in the near future. We're pretty early on in it, so we're just working on it, just kind of as a side hustle for now. And if you're not familiar with Design Fika, or Fika in general, Fika is the Swedish word for coffee or to get coffee, but it's also a practice of in the late afternoon to just take a break from work, take a break from studying, and to just go grab a coffee and grab some pastries with some friends or colleagues and just relax. And so that's just something I'm doing here. You can come hang out, listen to some tunes, and just chill and watch me design. It's kind of a low pressure thing that I'm getting in the habit of doing every Friday. So come hang out, watch me work on an app, and yeah, that's about it. So today, we're going to be working on a little bit of shaping work. Now, if you've never looked at shaping, or you've never done shaping before or heard of it, shaping is this process developed by the guys over at Basecamp, and it's a really great method for working out all of the details and all the messiness that comes at the beginning of designing a new product or designing a new feature. It does a really good job of defining exactly what you're building and taking a lot of the known and unknown risks out of building something before you start building it. And so with the app that we're working on it as a kind of a side project, as a side hustle. All three of us have full-time jobs, and so we really want to be as effective and efficient with our time as possible. And so shaping is a big thing that we're doing in order to help define a lot of what we're doing, so that we can properly define what MVP is, what these features look like, so that we're all on the same page. And also, it's also really great practice for if you're working with asynchronous teams, where you're working with teams in different time zones. It's a really great way of defining a feature or part of an app or like part of a product well enough that you can hand it off to someone and you know that they won't go down the wrong path, or at least you'll minimize the risk of them going down the wrong path. So if you're not familiar with shaping, or if you want to learn more about this process besides what you watch, I'm going to pull this up on my screen here. But what you'll want to do is go over to, let's see. Let's pull up my screen here. So you can read the entire book. Shape Up is a great book. You can buy the print edition, or you could read the entire thing online or just download a PDF. I'm a huge e-reader nerd. That's the way that I like to do things. And so you can read the entire thing online or download a PDF and you can put on whatever e-reader that you like. Yeah, it's a pretty short book. It's probably will take you 2 to 3 hours to read. Highly recommend it. I highly recommend this process. But we're not just going to be talking about what the process is. I'm actually going to walk through and do it. So yeah. So let's open up. Unlike a lot of design live streams or tutorials where people tend to just jump into the UI, we're actually going to be working mostly in a text editor. And when I say mostly, for this process, it's pretty much 100% going to be in a text editor. And the reason why is because it's the quickest way to iterate and to focus on things. We want to minimize the amount of visuals, and we want this to be as digestible as possible. And so the written word is the best way to do this. And so that's what we're going to be working in today. So yeah. So what the shaping process looks like. Well, let's give it a little bit more context first, because I feel like I'm just going to jump into it. So what the shaping process looks like is you're taking a feature. But in this case, we're actually going to take a feature, but you can apply it to other things as well. So what you do is you take a feature, and your goal is to create boundaries and enough clarity to kind of rough out the idea without fully solving it. Because the goal is that you're able to define why you're building something, who's it for, what solution it's supposed to, like what outcome it's supposed to achieve, and what this solution should look like. And most importantly, the things that you don't want it to look like, because sometimes just defining what you don't want is just as powerful as what you want, because now you're able to create boundaries and be able to work within the limitations and the structure. So let me show you what that looks like. We're going to make it really easy, and we're just going to open up a blank text editor. I'm a huge fan of AI Writer. This is what I use all the time. And let's see. Let's go ahead and set up some more stuff. So the feature that I'm going to be shaping is this concept of boards. So let's actually zoom in on this. All right, that should, let's actually change some of these preferences just so it's a little easier to read. Okay, that should work. And if I need to, I'll just move me out of the way. You know, I can do that now. All right. So the idea or the goal of shaping is to write at the end of it a pitch. So the goal is to essentially pitch your team or pitch your stakeholders on why you should bet your company's or your team's time and energy and resources into building this product, or investing time into this feature. Because when you think about it, every feature is essentially betting your time. It's about thinking about it like a series of bets. If you've ever played poker, if you've ever played blackjack, you know that there's a concept of thinking about risk and like thinking about your odds. And so when you think about that and apply that to business, we're also thinking in the same way, that we're thinking about what are the odds of this working? Why should we do this? Why is this better than the other ways that we can invest our time and energy? And so really it's the outcome is to write a pitch so that we could make the case for why we want to invest time into this. So a good pitch has a few different elements. It has the problem. And so the problem also has like the context, but it's basically like, what problem do users have, either with our current product or just in general, and why we would solve it this way. And so this also includes context, audience. Actually, I'm not going to include audience just because audience is kind of baked in. Like you should have an audience defined for the product. But sometimes you could do audience as well. All right. And then the next thing is appetite. So this is how big of a solution that you want to create as well. Because building a feature that takes 6 weeks versus doing a feature that takes 2 weeks and saying that it's a problem that we want to solve, but it's not super critical. We don't want to invest a ton of time into it. And so also the amount of scope and the amount of time that you want to invest into it also shapes how big of a solution you can go. Because if you've ever worked with teams where you've not defined exactly how detailed of a solution they want to go, even as UX designers, we love to just completely think about the absolute best optimized solution there is. And sometimes there isn't business budget, or there isn't just rationale for doing something that's like crazy difficult in order to dev out. And instead we want to do something that's good enough because that's the amount of value that we think we'll get out of it. Appetite, and then we want to talk about the solution. Obviously, how we're going to solve the problem and exactly how we're going to define the solution. And then rabbit holes and no-goes. Also very important, because when we define the boundaries and we define the places that we don't want the solution to go into, then we're able to create confines and create structure in order to come up with a solution that fits within those confines. That way we don't go down some crazy rabbit hole, invest a bunch of time and energy that becomes a time suck, and that we don't launch the feature or the product on time or in a reasonable amount of time. So that's what we're filling out. That's the legend here. All right. So let's talk about boards, exactly what we're trying to do here. So in a lot of calendar apps, well, let me back up. Let me drink and be thoughtful for a second. So here's the problem first. When several of us on our team, no, I say several of us, all three of us on our team don't like the way that calendars work because we have one problem in particular, and that is they don't seem to do a good job of dealing with context. When you think about how you spend your time, you can subdivide the events and to-dos in your life into different categories. There's work, there's home, there could be things like kids, family, there could be, hobbies, groups and things like that. And so while they all are a part of how you spend your time, sometimes, like when you're at work, all you really want to see is things related to your work. And so when we've explored that concept and looked at what the solutions are out there, we found that we're not really happy with a lot of those solutions, because a lot of them are either it's kind of an out of the way feature, or it's super easy to miss, where me and Brian, one of our co-founders, we've tried using a feature in another calendar app where we're able to select what calendars that we want to use and be able to set up calendar lists so that we can toggle between them. And we have both missed critical meetings because we didn't realize what context that we were looking at. And so the context has to be super obvious. It has to be super useful. And a lot of the concept that we're going for in this app in particular is breaking beyond the calendar and thinking about how you manage your life. And so that's what we're trying to do here. And that's what we're trying to shape with this feature that I'm thinking about called boards. So basically how it works is, and this is a lot of the prototyping that we were doing in the previous week, so I'll show you a little bit about that. So this is a little of what I'm talking about here. So there's this concept that we've been messing around with. Rather than a very subtle drop down, what if it was more obvious? What if it was more of a concept around the entire interface is customizable and changeable depending on whatever context you want to create? And it doesn't have to be personal or work. It also can be, I want to show everything related to my habits. I want to show everything around fitness, or if you're a sports fan, I want to show all of the details about my sports team. And so that's kind of the concept that we're playing around with. And so this idea is that we have this, what we're calling the ribbon menu right now, that you have using this as a navigation, that you're able to switch between different views or canvases. We landed on the term board because it seems like the best fit. It's kind of TBD. We're kind of messing around. It's kind of a name pending, but that's kind of the idea that we're working with. So we've kind of done some rough prototypes here where we've kind of messed around with the concept. And so now we're ready to start defining what that looks like. So that's what I'm going to be working on today, is creating some boundaries, creating some restrictions around it, and thinking about scope and thinking about all these edge cases that we want and need to have in this feature. So let's swap back over here. All right. Oh. We're going to have to go into focus mode here. Is there a way that I can narrow this up while we're this zoomed in? Unfortunately, I can't. All right, so let's do this. Let's just scoot this over here. It's all right if we see a little Figma in the background. All right, that way. All right, we can still do that. All right, perfect. All right. So the problem is, let's read this out loud. Nearly all calendar schedule apps do a poor job of showing just the event and just the events and information you want to focus on right now. Deliver live switching between different contexts, work, homework, hobbies, and sometimes we need to focus in on one context, yet we're expected to manage our day-to-day as one big calendar. It's something that's a starting point. We'll kind of finesse that a little bit more. Now this is a little different than an existing product because you notice the context. I'm talking about other apps. Where if you're doing shaping for an app that currently exists, then you'll want to talk about problems and challenges users have using the app right now. And so it's a little bit of a tweak. I don't even know if I'm quite doing this correctly. I'm sure other people have come up with different ways of doing it, but that's just kind of the way that I've done it for new products, and it seems to work pretty well. Because we're talking about how we want to differentiate ourselves from other solutions in the market. I'm not really liking this last part. I don't think we're like really honing in on the problem here. It's that when we want to focus in on a particular context, like work, and we want to pull in all the data related to our work, things that are not about work or what we're working on right now become noise. And so let's actually kind of try to capture that kind of idea. It's really info about other contexts, or info related to other contexts becomes noise. Some products offer some But the solutions, how do I put this? They're really like, they're like second-class citizens. They don't, I mean, in a way, they just kind of fall short. I guess that's, I guess just fall short. Easy to miss. Now, I'm thinking about particular apps when I write this as well, and I might actually include in the pitch, but I don't necessarily want to put that on live stream, just because there's a lot of great apps out there, and just because they don't work for me doesn't mean that there's nothing wrong with them, and I don't want to like call out anyone or feel like that's what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of leaving it as is, but it's just kind of what we're working on. Okay. Okay, so let's actually delete that last sentence. Okay. I think that's good enough. We'll come back to that. We'll go over like editing. Let's just work on like a draft, and then we'll go through and kind of edit some things, because I'll probably want to tighten that up a little bit. And if you have ideas as well, you kind of get the idea of what I'm trying to do here, yeah, feel free to weigh in as well. Does this make sense if you were to read this? You might need a little more context, just like what we're working on in the app, but yeah, if it's making sense, not making sense, feel free to weigh in as well. All right, so the appetite. So going back to what our pitch has, we've got the problem. Next, we're looking at appetite. So the Basecamp team handles things in basically two tracks. It's either small or large. Small is about 1 week or 2 weeks, and they'll kind of stack them together into kind of a larger one. And then they have a big size as well. Their features are 6 weeks long for the big one, and then 1 or 2 weeks for the small one. They'll kind of stack up into a 6-week sprint, if you will. So we're not sure if we're going to do that kind of cadence. Again, this product, we've written some very limited code. It's just kind of prototyping code in order to kind of spike some ideas and to kind of show some things that we need to work out. So yeah, there hasn't really started any features in earnest, so we don't really know the cadence that we want to follow. But we're going to try this. I've never actually been able to have enough say in a team to tell or to work with a dev team about what kind of cadence they should be shooting for. So yeah, that's what we're going to try to do, is a 6-week cadence. So this is... Also, there's just a lot of moving parts in there. Let's make that bold. All right. Now let's talk about our solution. You don't have to use these headers as well. I'm just doing it just because I'm trying to just get a rough draft done on this. But you can be a little bit more flexible as long as it hits these major parts. All right, shake it off. Let's dive into this. This is probably, so as part of a as part of a pitch, you want to do enough visuals to kind of rough out the idea without influencing too much of the solution. Because within UI design, there's so much like game time decisions that you need to make, and so many restrictions of just like, do I have the screen real estate to fit all that text in there? What happens when we're talking about responsive or a smaller screen? There's so many little details that have to work out in the UI that we don't want to be too prescriptive, because that's how we offer up a solution that might not work out. And so we really want to focus on just enough of shaping the solution so that a designer, when they're jumping into working on this in the UI, jumping on this in Figma or something like that, they're able to execute on that and not feel like their hands are tied behind some rough sketch. And so that's why wireframes are too high of a fidelity, because now we're starting to get into that design space. We really just want to restrict the solution so that we can kind of communicate enough so that they have the boundary set, but they're able to have freedom to define the solution. All right. So what else do we want to define when it comes to boards? So really what I talked about earlier is like, rather than filtering them, which is such a small thing. So I mean, the filtering is really done in two separate ways, where it's usually like a drop down where you kind of like set a filter, and then the other part is I've seen it done in like calendar apps where it just lists all of the calendars that you have shown right now, and you kind of toggle visibility on and off, which is also great. It's great when you're using it in the context of like, I'm looking at individual teammates and looking at their individual schedules to kind of look at overlaps and things like that. But it's not that great when I'm switching between personal projects and work projects. So Hello, everyone. New people have joined. I'm doing some shaping right now. Oh, you know what I can do? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna kind of hack a floating thing. All right. I guess we could zoom out just like a smidge. All right, cool. All right, so I kind of put this over here, pin this up. This is what we're trying to do. I'm writing a pitch for this feature called boards that I'm kind of working through. All right, there we go. Okay. So this concept of boards, so we're working past filtering content in a fixed UI. We want to actually give them full control of how content is displayed. And so really want to take this concept of essentially what they are, like pages. So maybe a different way to think about this, and maybe the terminology that we want to use instead of board is a page instead. It's something worth considering, because you think of like something like a bullet journal or like a day planner. We can use that metaphor of like a page in a day planner. And so maybe page is something that we kind of want to think about a little bit more as a terminology. We're going to use board right now because a lot of how we're thinking about our solution is not just a calendar or a day planner, but more of like a dashboard for your life, because calendar is just one part of it. There's other parts where you just want to look at fixed numbers, or you want to pull in numbers from different APIs, or there's just other things that you want to track and you just want to be aware of, you want it in front of you. And so we're kind of taking this metaphor of like your life dashboard. And so dashboard, not everyone kind of gets that right away. And so we've also liked the idea of like, Trello boards as well. And so board is kind of the metaphor that we're kind of running with for now, at least. I don't know, that might change as we kind of shape the solution a little bit more. All right, let's shape this solution. Let's write a little bit more. Let's also try to be careful about terminology as well, because when you start, we want to be specific about this enough that we're able to like define some of this terminology, because I've gotten in the bad habit of just, as we throw around terminology of what we could call this thing, that we kind of swap between them. And so there's different ideas that we've tossed around of like, do we call them canvases? Do we call them pages? Do we call them views? And so I want to make sure that we're not using them interchangeably. We're trying to be consistent as possible. might have to do a sketch as well. Exactly how we're gonna do this, because if we just swap over to Figma, this is essentially what we're doing here. Like, we've kind of fleshed this out a little bit more, but I also don't want to attach this. It's something that we can attach in here, and maybe I'll just, you know what? That's just something I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that as a placeholder until I come up with a sketch. Because I don't have a way to oh, will it not preview it? It does in preview mode. All right, that's not super helpful. Whatever. I'll just do screenshot here. Okay. See, here's how it works. Boards are I don't know if I even want to specify this. Navigate it through a menu where users can select a view they want to see. So the parts we want to hit on are like how to create one, naming, editing, basic CRUD stuff, deleting. No, let's just do CRUD. If you're not a developer, you might not have heard of CRUD. It is short for create, read, update, delete. It's kind of the basics of what we want to cover. Naming, whether they want to have names. I was going to say an iconography, but I don't know if we need to define that. That seems like a UI level decision. Then you want to create a new board. Can create one using the boards menu. Here you can select the board you want to view, edit, boards. Create a new board or manage existing boards. Let's be consistent. So let's create a new board. Oxford commas for life. It's definitely something we got to sketch out. You know, let's do this in FigJam. Just because I would typically do this on my iPad and I don't have it. Or I don't have a way to show the iPad on the stream. It's something I'm considering working on, but let's just do it like this. Let's see. Okay, typing text in there doesn't really work. Cool. Let's see. What's a simpler way to write this? Boards are graded, selected, and managed through the boards menu. Actually, let's drag this down here. So the idea is like boards have different layouts as well. It's like I can do a different combination of widgets for each one of these. So we got some of that layout stuff done, or we got some of this general concept. I think I need to dive into this concept of layout. Yeah, we're gonna have to dive into that a little bit. What's difficult about the beginning of any product is that everything is so interconnected, because these blocks here are what we're referring to as widgets. And so you can't properly define a board until you define the properties of a widget as well. We haven't defined widget, and so we have to define one enough so that we can help define another one and then go back and refine that. And so that's kind of the tricky part of doing this. So right now we're kind of defining and focusing on the layout of these before we get into before we can really do anything about the widgets as well. So I think that's about it for today. I'm going to keep working on this offline. Just wanted to keep it just an hour. I got some other things I got to do today. But yeah, that's basically how I approach kind of that shaping process. And I'm going to continue this on another day. So I hope that was helpful. Again, if you want to learn a little bit about what this is, what that shaping process is, go to basecamp.com/shapeup, or just search for ShapeUp book, and you'll find it as well. This is a great method for really working through all the messy parts at the beginning of a project, and help to really define exactly what it is that you're making without feeling like you're running in circles or burning yourselves out, building things and then rebuilding things and then rebuilding things again. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one.